I flew 3,000 miles to hear my sister, Chloe, stand up at Thanksgiving dinner and announce, "We took a vote, Maya. You're not family anymore." The entire room went silent. They thought I hadn't lifted a finger while they almost lost the family vineyard, the vineyard I practically grew up in. They didn't know that for the past 6 months, I had risked my entire 7-figure career, working under a shell corporation, to become the anonymous legal angel that saved the farm from being seized by eminent domain. They voted me out right as I was about to reveal I was the only thing holding their entire future together. The drive from San Francisco International to Willow Creek Vineyard always used to feel like a slow, therapeutic decompression. I'd leave the concrete canyons of corporate law and arrive at the sun-drenched, rolling hills of Napa Valley, the air heavy with the scent of fermenting grapes and rich soil. Today, the drive felt like an entry into a war zone. I was Maya Jensen, 35, a corporate litigation specialist based in D.C. My life was defined by the relentless, high-stakes combat of complex mergers and environmental law. The vineyard was my sister Chloe's 37, life, and by extension, the entire Jensen family's identity. They lived by the land, I lived by the contracts. That difference, over the last decade, had created a canyon between us. The friction reached critical mass 6 months ago when Willow Creek was threatened by an existential crisis. A major county initiative to seize the vineyard's crucial riparian water rights for a new industrial development. It was an eminent domain legal nightmare, a high-stakes case that would have left the land worthless, forcing my parents, my sister, and her husband, Ben, into bankruptcy. Chloe had called me, hysterical, begging for help. I had to tell her the truth. I couldn't publicly touch the case. My firm, while powerful, represented many of the state's key utility and development clients. If I personally represented a small organic vineyard against a county initiative, I would be fired instantly, losing my shot at partnership and my 7-figure salary. "So that's it," Chloe had screamed. "Your fancy career is more important than saving Mom and Dad? More important than our home?" "Chloe," I said, cold dread filling me, "I can't put my name on the brief. But I will find another way." I hung up, and for the next 6 months, I lived a double life. I pulled every legal favor, every contact, and every ounce of my 35 years of professional training. I set up a small, anonymous shell legal advisory group in San Francisco, Arbor Solutions. I funneled tens of thousands of my own dollars into funding the local lawyer, who was officially handling the case, but I wrote every critical motion, researched every historical precedent regarding 19th century water deeds, and coordinated the strategic leaks to the media that put pressure on the county board. I worked over 100 hours a week, often sleeping on my office couch, fueled by the sheer necessity of saving my family's legacy, a legacy they thought I had abandoned. My cover worked perfectly. The local press hailed the anonymous firm, Arbor Solutions, as the benevolent legal angel who had worked pro bono to save Willow Creek. My parents and Chloe celebrated a miracle, but they never forgave me for the perceived betrayal. They only saw my absence. The Thanksgiving trap. I arrived at the house at 3 p.m., my usual 2-hour late arrival that I blamed on DC travel issues. The house was warm, loud, and smelled like sage and rosemary. The familiar long, rustic dining table was already set for 22 people. My mother, Martha, greeted me with a thin, brittle hug. "It's good you could squeeze us in, Maya," she said, her tone dripping with passive aggression. "We were worried your important life would keep you away from a simple family meal." My father, David, simply nodded, his eyes sad and avoiding mine. He'd always been the peacekeeper, but in this conflict he was a mute witness to Chloe's dominance. Chloe, however, was the star of the show. She looked radiant, basking in the glow of the vineyard's salvation. She was wearing a new, expensive silk dress and held court in the kitchen, accepting effusive praise for managing the crisis and keeping the faith. The meal began with the usual strained niceties, but I felt the cold air of exclusion building around me. The conversation revolved entirely around the legal victory, a discussion I had orchestrated, yet was completely excluded from. "It's just unbelievable," said Aunt Carol, leaning across the table. "That anonymous firm, that Arbor Solutions, they were angels, Martha. To take that case pro bono for a little vineyard like ours? It's divine intervention." We owe them everything. Mom sighed dramatically, glancing pointedly at me. They were the ones who truly showed up. Not everyone values family enough to make sacrifices. I took a sip of my wine, tasting the bitterness of my own double standard. I had chosen to save their home, but in doing so, I had confirmed their worst suspicions about my character. The public execution. The moment arrived after the turkey was carved and the wine was flowing freely. My father tapped his glass nervously. He cleared his throat, but before he could speak, Chloe grabbed the wine bottle and raised it high. "Wait, Dad," she interrupted, her voice loud and carrying the finality of a judge. "I have the first toast. To Willow Creek. To its survival. And to the people who actually fought for this land." The family roared its approval. Chloe turned, her smile fading into a look of cold, surgical triumph as she focused entirely on me. "For the past year, we have all worked, prayed, and panicked together," she began, her voice gaining an oratorical edge. "We had people who stayed. People who sacrificed their time and energy to keep this place alive. And then we had people who left to chase their own prestige, viewing this crisis as a nuisance and not a home." She paused, taking a deliberate, dramatic sip of wine. My heart began to pound a heavy, slow rhythm against my ribs. I knew where this was going. "The truth is," Chloe continued, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper that everyone strained to hear, "that this farm, this home, needs dedication. Not distant checks or empty promises. It needs family." She took a deep breath, meeting my gaze with a final, malicious certainty. "So we had a discussion. The core family, Mom, Dad, Ben, and me, we took a vote. And we decided, Maya, that you are no longer contributing to the emotional or physical well-being of the Jensens. We can't afford to keep feeling judged and rejected by you. So, at this Thanksgiving, we officially announced that you are out. We voted. You're not family anymore." The entire room dissolved into horrified murmurs. My mother gasped, a performative sound that masked her deep complicity. My father looked down at his plate, unable to face me. The rejection was absolute, public, and delivered at the height of the most sacred family holiday. A sharp, almost unbearable pain lanced through my chest, but it instantly hardened into pure, glacial rage. They hadn't just rejected me. They had erased my struggle. I calmly placed my linen napkin on the table and stood up. I didn't rush. I moved with the slow, controlled gravity of a closing argument. "Thank you, Chloe," I said, my voice steady, professional, and devastatingly calm. "That was certainly a choice of toast. I appreciate the clarity. But before you finalize the paperwork on your little family election, I need to remind you of one small thing you seem to have overlooked." I pulled a single sealed, heavy manila envelope from my purse. It wasn't the kind of purse I usually carried. It was a briefcase disguised as a clutch. "You're right, Chloe. The salvation of Willow Creek was a miracle. A legal angel worked tirelessly, pro bono, using high-level legal strategies that no local lawyer could ever have afforded or executed. They saved this vineyard from being a patch of dry dirt and gave you back your livelihood." I walked to the end of the table and placed the envelope precisely next to my father's wine glass. "Before you continue with your celebration of self-sufficiency, I want to clarify one detail about that legal angel, Arbor Solutions." I opened the folder, pulling out a copy of the final, crucial document. The signed riparian rights easement, the document that secured their water for perpetuity. I tapped the signature block with my manicured finger. "This is the easement, signed 6 months ago, securing your future." The official documents bear the signature of the lead counsel for Arbor Solutions. The man's name is Elias Thorne. Elias Thorne is a retired partner from my firm, who now works as a senior consultant at my request. I looked around the room, which was now silent again. Chloe's face was shifting from triumph to confusion. Elias Thorne took the case pro bono because I asked him to. I asked him to because I spent every single night for 6 months drafting his motions, finding his precedents, and directing his strategy. I funded the shell company. I paid his junior staff. I flew to Sacramento 4 times under the guise of corporate mergers to lobby the state water board. I leaned over the table, my eyes locking onto Chloe's frightened ones. I was the legal angel, Chloe. I was the one who put her entire multi-million-dollar career on the line, working anonymously, just so you could continue to water your grapes and bake a damn turkey in peace. I straightened up and delivered the final blow. My firm offered me the senior partnership last week. I turned it down. The reason? My unauthorized, high-risk involvement in a major state water rights case that took me away from my paying corporate clients. I sacrificed my partnership, the single biggest professional achievement of my life, to save this vineyard. I then pulled out a second document, a notarized quitclaim deed. This is the final, executed deed for the vineyard. When Arbor Solutions acquired the final lien on the land to clear the title, a lien you didn't even know existed, they secured the right to claim the land. That lien now belongs to me. I held the deed up. I saved this land because I loved it, even if I hated the people on it. And now you voted me out. I put the deed back into the envelope. Well, that simplifies things, doesn't it? Since I'm not family anymore, I have no emotional obligation to you. You are all now tenants on my property. I looked at Chloe, whose jaw was slack with pure, devastating horror. You and Ben have 30 days to find alternate housing and operations. Mom and Dad. I paused, addressing them with profound, cold pity. You may stay rent-free for the rest of your lives. But Chloe is gone. Her tenure as farm manager is terminated. She will not profit from the land I saved at the expense of my own future. I picked up the envelope and walked to the door. Happy Thanksgiving, family. Enjoy the land I risked everything for. And remember, the people who stayed were the ones who almost lost it all. The one who left was the one who saved you. As I walked out, I heard my mother's genuine, heartbroken cry, and the sound of Chloe's furious, desperate wail. I didn't look back. The air outside was cool, but the weight of 10 years of resentment had finally lifted. I had sacrificed my career future, but I had secured something far more valuable. My dignity and the final, beautiful proof of their colossal, unforgivable mistake.